You're listening to Dead Air Podcast, part of Splatterpictures.net.
Hey everybody, it's Wes, Dead Air Nipe, here with...
Typical Lydia.
Typical Lydia, now and forever, or until I find someone better. Today we're talking about the 2009 direct-to-DVD slasher, The Hills Run Red. Lydia, so tell me your thoughts. Initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts, I really enjoyed this movie. It's going to sound like I hated it a lot because I pick at it a lot, but I pick at it because I love, It's an entertaining film, and I'm hard pressed to find a film that I don't hate with every fiber in my body or, argue with other people. I just flat out really enjoy this movie. It's fun and I like it.
But what is it? So the concept behind the movie is that a group of young film enthusiasts or filmmakers to be hear about this legend of a horror movie that was supposed to be so scary, so shocking that it was banned. The director is missing. None of the cast is around anymore. And so it's this quest to find this one great scary horror film, and so they sort of go on an adventure to get it. That's the basic premise. What you basically get out of that is a somewhat self-aware slasher in the same vein as Scream or Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, where you have people sort of picking apart this particular subgenre of horror and trying to run with it anyway, by at the same time acknowledging that it's happening as a slasher would. So it's been done before. It's been done to much greater fame with like Wes Craven doing Scream and stuff like that. So what is it about this particular one that you find better than, let's say, the others?
I wouldn't say better.
You wouldn't say better?
Like we've pointed out, it's direct-to-DVD.
It is direct-to-DVD.
It doesn't have a huge following.
Direct-to-DVD doesn't mean bad, though.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that means bad, but it's not like theater-worthy. It's not Scream. It doesn't have 20 sequels. It's not a Wes Craven's baby by any means. But what I really, really like about it is it does, instead of just picking on the genre and straight up mentioning and name-dropping all these great horror movies, it sort of just pulls from them in a really like subtle way. Like you had mentioned that it was so gory it was banned or something, which feeds into the myth of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Mm-hmm. How it was, drive-ins, people were throwing up in the aisles, and it was banned here and there, and it was too gory to be seen. And
yeah, which is funny because it's really that movie, like, it doesn't even really show that much.
No.
And but the title,
the meat hook thing, it doesn't actually ever happen. But yeah,
well, it depends what cut you see. But so Texas Chainsaw Massacre was definitely one of those things where it was the name, and then people just inserted their own their own extra scenes with it. But
or the mythology of Cannibal Holocaust, where everyone disappeared for a year and things like that.
Well, they thought it was a snuff film. They thought it was real. And then, of course, when you watch Cannibal Holocaust, it's interesting. I would say as sort of like a historically interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't even really say it's all that great. And to me, maybe it's just because you see so much horror, and now in modern times, like special effects have come to a certain point, and then you look at the stuff at like Cannibal Holocaust, and it's not. I don't know how anyone would think it was real, because it's obviously special effects and stuff like that, and with the exception of like the killing of real animals, which is a whole other conversation for another day. Mm-hmm. But what I liked about The Hills Run Red is the fact that instead of having like you said, people picking on the genre, you had just like one cynical character sort of rolling his eyes at things that people do in horror movies, going away from a metropolitan area to the middle of nowhere, not having any technology, not having any way out, and
he brought a gun.
He brought a gun. He brought flares, and they had phone reception, which was funny. But what I liked about this was the killer in the movie was sort of taking real world logic and using it to his advantage, using the cell phones himself, using the gun himself, as opposed to just sticking to, well, I'm just gonna like kill you with farm equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah, chase him with pitchforks. Yeah.
Chase him with pitchforks when he's holding a gun, right? Or like I said, using like he doesn't know where the girl is, so he calls her cell phone from her friend's phone, and then that of course it rings, and then there she is.
Yeah, using all this stuff against him, using the gun against him, and the cell phone and such.
So I remember you saying when we were watching the movie, there was certain parts about that you didn't like, and it wasn't.
Let's talk about what we hate.
Well, what we hated, sure. So, what exactly did you think was like a miss for this exact movie?
The biggest miss, lack of research in the drug use scene. That was the very first one where I sat back and mentioned it, and again with the film diarrhea that they continuously spew out. Sure, they're film students, and like you said, it's like anything that any film student would just barf out, but it's worse than that because it rings really hollow, and it's like they've only learned anything that they spew out about the philosophy.
Right.
Yeah, it's the philosophy of filmmaking that they're spewing out. Sounds so canned, like they've only learned it from other films and only learned it from other characters' dialogue, not anything they actually learned in film school. So I just hazard a guess that none of these people actually attended any film school,
right,
or read any philosophy of filmmaking. Same with the drug scenes. It seems that they don't know anyone that's ever taken drugs. They've never seen somebody detox off of hard drugs.
Which is weird in Hollywood.
Yeah, you'd think. And that they've only ever seen drug use portrayed fictionally in other films or maybe books. That's where it seems that they're only fodder for any of their linchpin of character flaws. Like their character flaw in that girl with their drug use that they have to break for what reason.
So there's this whole scene in the movie where the main character is going to find this actress who was in the movie, who was in the movie as a child, and she just so happened to also be the daughter of the director. And so he finds her, she's strung out on heroin and coke or whatever, some combination of the two. And so they have like this detox scene where he's getting her off the drugs, and it's so she can think straight, and so she'll help him. I'm not exactly sure what the motivation of it was, other than the fact that he wanted to show her that he's serious, so he tied her to a bed and was just going to hold her there until she was no longer on the drugs, which, by the way, is how it works. If you have an addiction, you just take the addiction away from someone and say, oh, well, you're cured.
Yeah, you just tie him to a bed for 3 days, and it's done. Yeah. Jane's Addiction wrote a song about it. 3 days, man. That's all it takes. But, like you pointed out, is this all part of her big plan? Right.
Again, spoiler alerts, it turns out that this woman is actually luring them to the grounds because her father is a crazy person and wants to film the best horror movie that he can, and that's by actually killing people. And she's there to sort of bring them there. And so, it begs the question of, well, what was the point of that? Is she actually strung out on drugs, and is this all part of her plan to like get detoxed, and then what? But I guess they kind of implied the fact that her being off the drugs is what made her the more competent killer. Out of she said, "You're special. You helped me." That kind of stuff towards the end. Which, interestingly, the first time I saw the movie, I didn't pick that up, and then when we watched it just now, I was like, oh, maybe that's their attempt at explaining.
Maybe they need another montage. Maybe that's what they needed, is another montage.
They do have a lot of weird montages, weird cuts from that don't seem to have anything to do with anything. Like, there are scenes that are flashbacks.
Yeah.
There are scenes that It's kind of frustrating, actually, because in an hour and a half movie, I don't really know how much you need to actually recap for the audience that literally has just sat here and watched the movie. It seems like a waste of film. But there's other flashbacks or memories.
When he touches the poster. And he has the only explanation is that he touches the poster and he has a flashback of Babyface coming at him. And this is from a film he's never seen. And it seems like you said, like, it's a Vietnam War flashback.
Yeah, he's just like, oh man, the horror, Babyface came after me. Whoa.
Which never ever happened.
Which hadn't happened to him yet. Maybe he just watched that trailer so much that it just became, you know.
Maybe it wasn't a flashback. It was a premonition.
It was a premonition.
They just didn't set it up properly. We didn't get that.
That's a whole other movie. The Hills Run Red 2. Stifler has psychic powers.
There's another Stifler.
There's another Stifler.
No, sorry, but yeah. It's that minute and a half long flashback where they recap the entire thing, and you had said, like, this is in case you missed the movie you just saw. There's like one tiny portion in that where it seems that he has caught on that she lured them there. Yeah. When the lady at the store says, hey, I remember you, but she couldn't remember her because she's like 20 years older now. So that part is the only thing in that whole flashback that is even interesting. But he doesn't even when they come out of the flashback, he doesn't even have this look on his face like, oh, that bitch. He's just like, gah, you know, lost in space. So it doesn't even work.
Yeah, I think really this film had an interesting concept. And I do like the way that a lot of things were executed. I do like the look of Babyface as a killer. I like the idea of this family of killers instead of being a bunch of bushwhacking rednecks. They're just really bent filmmakers, and they're all acting, and even like the mongoloid killer is acting, and that makes it pretty interesting. It's a spin on it that I hadn't really seen before. But again, there's just pitfalls of weak writing.
Yeah, where that, you know, diarrhea mythology and diarrhea filmmaking philosophy, and I use the word diarrhea a lot, but no, when Babyface breaks character is one of the most chilling points, but it's like a point. You had called me out on, like, talking about the strong women, the hot women, the hot women that are believably hot, not overly hot, they're believably hot.
Right.
Regular girls.
Right.
And when, you know, she's done with this shit, she's basically like out of there. The one main character, the documentary maker's girlfriend, where she decides this is too screwed up. The killer's at my boyfriend. I'm done. She's like, I'm out of here, and she runs. Right. And she basically runs into the most horrifying scene of the film. Right. Basically,
bunch of bodies hanging on hooks.
Yeah.
Getting ready to be turned into what did they say? They were turning them into like bacon or something like that.
Well, no, the guy had said they were smoking them, preserving them,
Reversing them,
I'm
right.
making up words now.
But yeah, she jumps into that barrel of gore, and it just seemed like quite the leap. I personally felt when in Final Girl scenarios, which she became, I suppose, even though it's kind of like there wasn't really much of a body count in the. Well, I guess there was, but she became like the final girl, and like I guess her like metamorphosis into badass killer chick. You know, coming out of...
She's just birthed out of the pit of gore.
Yeah, birthed out of the pit of gore. I just felt like, you know, it had literally been a minute between she was just like...
I'm out of here, I'm done.
GTFO, guys. I'm gone. You're fucking... This is your problem now. And then now... But I guess maybe she's like, well, I'm fucking...
Now I'm badass. I was birthed out of a friggin... a vat of gore.
Yeah.
Look at me go.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like, you know, I hope she got like hazard pay or something like that, because I can only imagine what sitting in something like that would do to your body.
Oh, she probably didn't sit there long, and I'm down with that. Whatever, sure. Even if it was real pig blood, I'd be like, yeah, sure. I'll do that.
Yeah, but that's you, though.
Fucking right. Fucking right it is. Fuck, how do you know I don't do that all the time?
I'm pretty much convinced that you do now.
Look at the skin. You don't get skin like this without sitting in a big vat of fucking blood every day for like at least a couple minutes.
So ladies, you heard it here first. Beauty tip from Typical Lydia.
Oh, God. Don't listen to her.
Yeah. I didn't know you were such a trendsetter.
Elizabeth Bathory was doing it first. I didn't set that trend.
Oh, you know what? I think I saw her doing that. She had sunglasses on, though, so it was kind of douchey.
No, yeah, whatever. There's no sunglasses invented when Elizabeth Bathory was around.
That's the joke.
Sorry, it's late.
Oh, it is.
I'm tired.
On that note, would you recommend this movie?
Definitely. It's fun. It's super fun, and that's my favorite part about it, is that you can sit back and it's not turn brain off and insert movie by any means, but it is fun, and it does chase the myth of horror movies that I wish still existed, that existed in the VHS days of the 80s, where you didn't have the internet to tell you everything about a movie. You couldn't go chasing locations. So it's a really fun journey that way. To be so enthralled with a movie and its filmmaker, to go chasing after it, kind of interesting. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I like it too. It's great visually. There are good special effects. The kills are nice. I think that it does suffer from some weak writing and some weak acting in some parts. But I mean, that kind of is par for course when you're dealing with direct-to-DVD. It's certainly not the worst. Certainly not the worst I've ever seen. I think in terms of like this sort of wave of self-aware horror, it is probably better than Scream, because I just feel like that panders to a general audience and horror's the butt of the joke, as opposed to really celebrating horror at all. Mm-hmm. And it was really just kind of like Wes Craven just saying how much he hates the genre that he like. It is. It's really just him. It's him just saying how much he hates the genre that he basically like helped.
And how much people dislike the fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
how much the fans dislike the genre itself.
Yeah. I think for the best self-aware horror, it's probably Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, just because of how in-depth they go into it and the way that it was shot. But I'd say a close second in the whole self-aware genre that we have going on now. That I want to have it go away soon, but it's here for a bit anyways. Hills Run Red. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a good watch. If you can find it on the cheap, I found my copy for $5. So.
I found mine for $4.99.
Anyway.
Typical Lydia.
And I'm Wes Knipe, and you've been listening to Dead Air.